All right, welcome everybody to the third of the three sessions you could choose to go to in the course of this afternoon. Our session is going to be the Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps and how amateur radio has been introduced to the Sea Cadets. And our special guest and presenter today is VE3ZQW, Sub-Lieutenant Matthew Batten. He's the head of the Communications Department at RCSCC Quinte, a Sea Cadet Corps in Belleville, Ontario. He's an avid shortwave listener for years, and Matthew obtained his license in 1994 following introductions to amateur radio that he got when in high school. Recognizing the need to revitalize the Sea Cadet training curriculum even before the pandemic, Matthew developed a comprehensive plan to introduce more science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, sometimes referred to as STEM, content via naval communications training. Matthew has been employed in industrial engineering for several years, specializing in manufacturing and service with both private and family companies. And that is the introduction for our presenter today, Sub-Lieutenant Matthew Batten. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Can everybody hear me okay? No problems with audio or anything? Good stuff. Well, thanks for coming into the room here while I give this briefing and everything. I'm going to try and keep it reasonably light here. I'm not going to go into too much heavy detail. But feel free if you have a question to sit there and put it in the chat box or whatever, and we'll try and address them as it goes. And it'll help me to develop this as we go along here, more than just a staccato briefing. I'm still not used to sitting there doing this by Zoom, even after the past year and a half. I prefer to be in front of a live audience, so bear with me. So I'm going to put up a presentation here for you, and we're going to talk our way through it and make sure this all works.
And it looks good here.
Excellent. Okay, so as the introduction went, my name is Matthew Batten, Victor Echo 3 Zulu Quebec Whiskey. Amateur radio operator since around 1994. A little background on myself regarding getting my license. I had shortwave listened for the majority of the 80s. My grandfather had bought me a radio back in the early 80s that I was able to get shortwave, VHF on, and everything else. And played with that for years, always listening in. Interesting things like when Chernobyl happened and that, used to listen to Voice of America, Deutsche Welle, BBC, all the different international broadcasts. And then when I got into high school in the late 80s, I had an electronics teacher who was very big into amateur radio. And he introduced me to real radios, if you will, and brought in one of his personal radios, which was a BC 348Q made by Wells Gardner, and straight out of a B17 or a B29, and still had the dynamotors and everything else hooked into it. And when he flicked that on for me at that age, and it slowly came to power and the lights started to finally come on to it and everything, it hooked me right off the bat there. And a few years later, the local amateur radio club went and had a clinic and course going on. So I immediately signed up for that and attained my license at that point. So this is, let's see here, where are we going to go? There we go. Today we're going to go through background of our organization here, overview of development and training, benefits and successes that we've found, methodology and our operations, plans for future growth, conclusions, and then I guess we will go into live stream questions. But as I said, if there's something pressing that you want to know about, please just put it in the chat box there or raise your hand. The moderator will take care of that. So, background of our organization. So the Royal Canadian Sea Cadets, it's a national Canadian youth program sponsored by the Department of National Defence and the Navy League of Canada. It encompasses males and females from age 12 through 18 years of age, and promotes the attributes of good citizenship, community, fitness, and interest in the Canadian forces. A little more background, the Sea Cadet system's been around since 1895. Some of the things that they study as a regular training are marksmanship, seamanship and sailing, band, leadership, instructional technique, drill, dress, deportment, and ceremonial. Currently, right now, with the Sea Cadets, or at the last time they checked, there were more than 8,000 Sea Cadets of that age group, that demographic, that are in uniform, and that's spread across 230 communities in Canada. So a fairly large number just for that element there. So I'm at a unit in Belleville, Ontario. We moved here, my wife and I, about 2.5, 3 years ago, and they brought me in and they said, well, we're going to put you into training. What are some things that you see that are going on, and what would you like to do when you're here? So I had been involved, as you know, with amateur radio for years, and looking at that demographic that we had and what the current training consisted of. Now, the Sea Cadet program used to have a excellent summer course called OPSCOM that was done out on the West Coast, where cadets were taught communications, technology, operations, all the stuff surrounding that, in addition to their flag hoist and visual signaling and that. But compared to, say, like the Air Cadets, who had flying training and technical trades training and such, I found that there was definitely a void in the sea system. And so basically, we identified a need in technology-based content. And we wanted to sit there and play on that because of the current demographic that's out there of teenagers. As it was said to me by a friend, we are visitors in their digital world. The majority of us, I'm closing in on 50 years of age. The majority of us, computers were new coming into our lives, where this current group, they've grown up with a smartphone in their hand from day one. This is their realm. We're mere visitors in it. So how can we sit there and take that technical comprehension that they have and actually give them something fun, useful, and community supportive? And that's how we started to develop the program. So we wanted to sit there and take this program, and we wanted to stimulate an interest in technology as it relates to the marine environment and naval operations. We wanted to have a program installing this where we had definable metrics, federal licensing, and we're able to sit there and graduate people through it. We have the ability here to build upon current training standards, namely VHF Marine, the ROC-M license that many of the Sea Cadets get, the flag hoist, the visual signals, signal projector, youth interaction nationally and nationwide. Using amateur radio, we're able to sit there and tie our youth to youth across Canada, across the world, Britain, the United States, South America, and points out into the Pacific. When looking at some of the other benefits that we were finding with the system, we found that it's applicable to isolated communities, allowing our youth who are trained in leadership and instructional technique to really take a leading step. So up in Northern Ontario or Northern Canada, where a lot of these small towns are isolated, we're able to sit there and look at expanding radio in there and having the youth take care of this. Expandable to interaction with other similar youth groups. With that being said, we've been talking to groups such as the Boy Scouts and that, and exploring ways that we can interact with each other with their youth jamboree and everything else. One of the big bonuses we found with this was a positive interaction with governmental, emergency, safety, SAR personnel and activities. In Belleville, we're located right next to CFB Trenton, which is one of the main search and rescue bases. And we've already had our cadets prior to the pandemic over to take a look through the through the rescue center, see SARSAT in operation, how communications are governed. And this also stimulated an interest with them with subjects such as Aries and that. Further on our staff here, we have one of the emergency response officers that's in the force here in Belleville, and he's been quite positive in bringing in people and allowing them to talk with our cadets about how this all interacts and that. I think one of the biggest benefits that the cadets themselves were able to recognize were paths to future success opportunities as a career or hobby. Our first course that we put through, and this was pre-pandemic, we were offering the course right here in our own building, and two of the cadets that were on that course, who have since hit 19 and have gone on to other things, chose going to military college, and they're at RMC now. Both of them are studying engineering, and one of them is going through, we changed her mind, and she's going through as an Army communications officer. So, you know, give me a lever long enough and I'll move the world. Well, we're starting to show them exactly what they can do with this kind of study. So, as we're dealing with age 12 through 18, it's the perfect demographic for introduction. As I said, we have these technologically minded teenagers. They're ready, they're willing, they're looking for a challenge to bring in information. In the program, we have the ability for standardized training to be delivered in person or virtually. At the start, before the pandemic, we were doing in class, as you can see from the one picture there. That's part of our first group. When the pandemic hit, the cadet system got an entire shutdown. It was a safety pause, if you will, and we weren't allowed any in-person training. And we were looking around for ways to try and deliver the content to them, because we were almost 3/4 of the way through the amateur radio course, the basic course that we were teaching. And luckily, Radio Amateurs of Canada decided to sit there and put together the virtual course. And we were able to put all of these cadets onto the virtual course and have them study and then do their licensing in that. So either way, whether it's this can be applied to remote settings or in person, close nearby units, we're able to deliver that content for them. Some of the things that we're going to be doing around our unit: practical components of training, small projects, station gear. We're going to be building equipment like a paraset from World War II. A couple of the cadets expressed interest in that. We've gone out and purchased a lot of breadboard material for prototyping and such, so we can start to deliver actual hands-on training. So instead of just doing Ohm's law and everything on paper, that's, you know, that gets tiresome after a while. Now they're actually able to sit there and put together a Hartley oscillator, or, you know, work with basic microchips and such like that. We're slowly branching into other units. The youth have actually started to talk and to their friends and their contemporaries, and other units across Ontario are actually, their cadets are getting excited. I'm getting several requests that are coming in now from various units, and they want to take part in this. And part of the reason for this is we're given the ability with the amateur radio licensing to provide a standardized capabilities and training for each unit. With that being said, we've developed a program where Belleville operates as the lead station, and we basically work as a central depot. So we're taking equipment in here, radio gear, and we're distributing it out to the various units as we license them, and setting up a common standardized operation schedule for them. So we can get them operating, we can get everybody operating together, and we're all basically on the same page, operating as one big group. One of the things that's really amazed me since starting this, and I only started this in the fall of 2019, was the level of assistance from national and local level amateur radio organizations. And I think the first one, again, is the Radio Amateurs of Canada, who have been so supportive to us throughout all of this, pre-pandemic and post into the pandemic. Local amateur radio clubs, backbones of the community. We're involved with about 3 or 4 different ones that aren't even in our area right now that are assisting us and assisting units that are in their area. So it's been highly successful that way. A lot of community involvement. Benefits and successes. A lot of people think that the youth aren't going to take to amateur radio. I've never understood this. It's actually fun and exciting. It was for me when I was 16 years old. It's still fun now. Showing the teenagers some of the technology that they're able to use, whether it be SDR radios, vacuum tube equipment, digital systems, they're finding this cool. And one of the funny things we found is we're getting equal participation of both male and females in that age group. And in fact, in a couple of units, we actually have more females that are taking part in this, and they're actually more successful than some of their male counterparts. Again, 2 of our initial graduates chose engineering at Royal Military College, and one has switched to an Army communications officer. Some of you might have seen that one of our cadets, Duncan Culleton, VA3 FSY, he's received his CW endorsement, and we have more cadets that are getting involved with CW. They're actually finding it fascinating, and they want to take that. They don't want to ignore that. So I've been shipping out equipment to units here in Ontario to get them signed up for virtual classes. Our first group that we basically have put through, we had 15 plus cadets that have gone through RACS program or our own in-house version. And we have also qualified staff. We have 7 established units in Ontario so far, and I have more that will be activating this fall and into the new year. So far, we have, of course, the lead station, which is RCSCC Quinte, VA3 GKY. We have RCSCC Vanguard, VA3 GFP, and they're located at HMCS York in Toronto, the Naval Reserve Division. RCSCC Harwood, located in Ajax, Ontario, and they are VA3 VBQ. RCSCC Niagara, located in Niagara Falls, VA3 NFC. RCSCC Skeena, VA3 YZJ, they're in Port Hope. RCSCC St. Lawrence, VA3 GXG, and they're located in HMCS Cataraqui in Kingston, Ontario. And RCSCC Triumph, located in Stony Creek, VA3 VRB. And I have 2 more units that I'll probably be activating in the Ottawa Valley here. Like I said, this fall, once we get our return to in person and I can get up there to install some equipment. One of the things you might notice with some of our call signs there, we've chosen ones that showed heritage towards actual Royal Canadian Navy or Royal Naval vessels. Take, for example, Quinte right here. The original, or pardon me, the second Quinte, MCB 149, its call sign in the Navy was CGKY. So when we started finding these, coming up with radio call signs, we basically tried to find what the original call sign for the name ship was, and then we just went and replaced the C or the G with a VA3. The odd one out on that is actually Niagara Falls. We weren't able to get there, so they just became VA3 NFC, Niagara Falls, Canada. With this, we've started a lot of excellent long-term relationships with organizations, including obviously the Radio Amateurs of Canada, the Royal Naval Amateur Radio Service, the Long Island CW Club, the Royal Navy Sea Cadets, and the United States Navy Sea Cadet Corps. Local amateur radio clubs are involved. It's been interesting with the international side of things, and this isn't even going into like the air and army elements. We're getting a really good response from overseas and from down in the States, where their officers have contacted us and are like, how can we get involved? Can we get some scheduled nets going here? And unfortunately, with the pandemic, I haven't been able to bring cadets in here so much. There was only 1-2 week opportunity we had, and we actually put Duncan, we brought him in that day so he could use his CW endorsement and do his first QSO. Methodology and operations. So we wanted to sit there and be able to try and immerse our Sea Cadets in the naval environment. And we wanted to try and replicate this at the other units that we were becoming involved with. So in each unit, the basic thing we wanted to do was establish a miniature CCR, communications control room, at each one of the Sea Cadet units. We wanted to establish qualification training. We wanted to develop unit communication officers. This was an important one for us. Obviously, I could sit there and I could teach this, I could demonstrate it, I could oversee it at each unit, but only one at a time. So at each unit, we've tried to develop an amateur radio qualified officer, get them their call sign, and then when they achieve their call sign, then we sit there and license that unit as a club. Reached out to similar or associated organizations. Again, Royal Naval Amateur Radio Service, US Sea Cadet Corps, current scouting movement. One of the things that we're going to be doing once we come into operation is we'll be conducting a weekly operations with a Canadian Cadet Net, and we'll be taking part in various special events, areas and stuff. With that being said, one of the ones that was a casualty of the pandemic was we were supposed to be part of the museum ships operating weekend. Quinty, the Sea Cadet Corps here, carries much of the memorabilia from the previous 2 actual HMCS Quinty's ships. We were able to get ourselves qualified with the New Jersey, the battleship New Jersey, as a museum ship operating in memory of. And what we had planned to do was run the 36 hours of the competition or of the event in watches, just as they would stand on board a ship or whatever, and sit there and operate in AM modes, sideband, and radio teletype. And unfortunately, that went by the wayside, but hopefully next year we'll be returning to that. We're also looking at doing the parks on the air, lighthouses on the air, and again, return to museum ships. Some of the things that the cadets are already involved with are visual signals, flag hoist, and signal projector. And what we found is since we've brought in the amateur radio program, the 2 of them are basically side by side. Their actual core training that they're receiving almost weekly, the 2 complement each other. And what we're finding is that our standards in this training is starting to come up now, because you're getting more context and understanding of why and how it all interacts and why it's used. So it's been a bit of a bonus. One of our prime things that we do out of our CCR here is we do HF operations, AM, signal sideband, and data, radio teletype. We're getting set up with WinLink, Packdoor, automatic link establishment. These are some of the things that are coming in. We are active on the local repeaters in the area. Sitting in the other room, I actually have all of our APRS equipment. It's just waiting for me to install it. So we have a weather station that we'll be setting up, so you'll be able to see the beacon coming up. Of interest, one of the things we've been able to do is to give more context to the amateur radio technology, is we've been able to apply it for the actual cadet operations. So our unit has several boats that we will take our cadets out in when we're parading together in decent weather. And we have the old 27-foot whalers, we have albacores and such, and a couple power boats. We're experimenting with basically putting APRS trackers on the sailboats and such. So when they're out in the Bay of Quinte, we can sit there and pull out the position where every one of those boats is at any given time. As well, we're able to sit there and message back and forth to those boats. Obviously, the main safety boats and whalers and everything else will have VHF marine radios involved, but this just allows us to track the vessels, and it's just a different dimension in operation. We're actually using the amateur radio to conduct our operations. Digital operations, WinLink, ALE, slowly installing the equipment here so we can get that done. One of the things we have coming in here is a 50-foot tower with a 20-meter beam antenna, and we have an FL 2100B amplifier, so we can do legal power and everything. Areas for future growth. One of the things, as I was saying at the start here, is we're looking at remote regions in Canada, Northern Ontario and such. And branching out from the Sea Cadets with one of our sister organizations, the Junior Canadian Rangers, we're able to sit there and deliver virtual training into those areas and develop those different units as radio units. So in some of these remote units, they'll have their amateur radio, they'll be able to take part in ARES. They'll basically, our youth will end up being the beacon for those areas. It's a fantastic leadership and training evolution that we're able to take part in. So we've started to actually speak to a lot of those units and that with the support of Cadets Canada, and it looks like this is going to be something that'll be happening in probably next year. All through the Maritimes, amazingly, PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, very enthusiastic. So I'm working right now with the Navy leagues in those areas, different branches and units to develop new units that we'll all be able to link up together with. One of the things that we'll have coming up is the Belleville station here. We're looking forward to being accredited as a CFARS station. The equipment, as I said earlier, was being installed and readied, and hopefully soon we'll be able to obtain that call sign. One of the other gentlemen here is working on an ASL rotator system for us, and we're actually using part of a Sperry surface radar rotator that we're modifying to accomplish this. And we're looking forward to being able to host satellite and hopefully ISS operations involving the cadets, so they're able to see even more so what's outside of our world. Development of the initiative to encompass Army and Air units and embracing their elemental differences and requirements. Ideally, what we'd like to develop is what we call the Cadets Canada supplementary radio system. Some of you might recognize that terminology. And basically, we would like to sit there and using the Sea Cadets as the benchmark, build up from there, but changing small parts of the operational side to suit the elements. So obviously, Air, Army, they have different requirements when they're doing their own stuff. So we want to be able to custom tailor that so it keeps it all in context for them. We're going to be working on continued emphasis on relationships and joint operations of similar organizations, international cadets, scouts, etc. We're really looking forward to being in more contact with some of the cadet units that are located far across the Pacific and that. And hopefully with once we have our tower and everything up, we'll be able to work on that. And one of the things is we're looking on the development of capabilities and technologies that are adjacent to the communications and the amateur radio to help us bring in an overall context. With that being said, we're looking at having some of our technically minded cadets who are now licensed. We're working together to sit there and develop simulator technology for in the cadet unit. So we can sit there and simulate bridge operations of an actual ship at sea. As such, a lot of the training that's involved crosses over with the communications protocols that they would be using on at sea. And they're working to sit there and build this. So a lot of our systems will all be set up. We'll be able to sit there and do this all virtually with other units as well that'll be using similar technology. Oh, conclusions. The teenagers involved in the initiative have embraced the hobby and technologies with zeal, and in spite of the pandemic. Because of our partnerships and cooperations, all of us in the amateur community should be proud of our successes here. When I say that, I don't mean it lightly. The support and messages that I've had from the amateur radio community, donations of equipment and such has just been astounding. It seems every time I open up my email, there's more information coming in, more offers of donated equipment, technical assistance and that. And I mean, all of us working together here have made this a reality. And of course, this is our youth. This is the future of this country. And we're giving them technology and putting knowledge in their hands. And, you know, just seeing from our first group there that we had two that went to Royal Military College to sit there and study engineering. As this slowly branches out from the other units, where will these teenagers be in 20 years? These are the people that are going to be involved in Radio Amateurs of Canada or IARU or, you know, designing the next series of satellites or whatever. We're giving them the opportunities to sit there and spring ahead, and it looks like they're grabbing it and running with it. One of the things I'd like to do though is I really want to offer a sincere thank you to a few people that have helped us along the way. And I guess Al Penny, VO1NO, Al has been a really giant ally to us and has helped us in an awful lot of spots and tweaked some of our stuff in a few spots there. So really thank you, Al, for everything you've helped us with. Phil McBride, VA3QR, unbelievable asset and resource. Dave Goodwin, VE9CB. I think most people are familiar with Dave. Brian Holmes, VE3IK. He's actually at the unit in Ajax. John Hunter, VA3OOD. He is at Vanguard in Toronto. Lieutenant Chris Barker, who has Skeena, and he will be getting his license very soon. He just got back from Newfoundland, so once he settles down there, he'll be seeing someone to write his exam. And another person who isn't named too often, but really sits in the background on this, is Lieutenant Mark Stark. Mark was an electronic warfare operator in the Navy. He's commissioned from ranks now, and he has done an unbelievable job at putting together training packages for us on communications and such, not only for what's being offered within the amateur radio program, but to the next level with maritime and naval communications. So I just want to thank all those people. So anyways, at this point, I'll turn it over for questions here, and I'm gonna stop screen sharing so I can actually see you.
Well, that was a tremendous presentation, Matthew, I must say. Not only is the cadet movement so vital in getting our youth involved in something that has tremendous impact on us as a society, but your involvement in introducing and growing and nurturing amateur radio within the group is just tremendous. And I see a familiar name on the screen that's popped on. That's Devin, who's a fairly recent ham here in our Charlottetown area, and he's with some cadets down in Montague. And We are so lucky to have you, Matthew, and we will be luckier as we keep going ahead with this. This is just fantastic. Okay, that's enough for me. So I was a cadet myself, so I'm a little attached to it. All right, if anybody would like to make any comments, Al's got his camera on now. Good to see you, Al. And if there's any comments or questions, now's the time. Go ahead. Al, I see you're unmuted.
Weren't you an air cadet though, Brent?
I was, but don't hold that against me, man.
I just had to poke a bit of fun. Excellent presentation, Matthew. Thanks very much for the mention. And I will mention or remind people that the RAC online basic course, the next serial is starting on Thursday, this Thursday coming up. We've still got lots of room. We're now on the RAC Zoom system, so lots of room for more students. So if you've got staff or students that you'd like to get on there, send them our way.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I'm retired. I don't have to say that. Take care.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thanks for what you do too. It's been a tremendous boost, not only to Atlantic Canada, but right across the country now with the online work that you're doing. It's great. Devin, I see you're unmuted. Do you have anything you want to add, sir? Not hearing you, Devin. You're unmuted. However, you may still be not fully configured for audio going out from your computer. So, oh, I heard a microphone. No, now you're muted again. Maybe you wanted to be muted the whole time. Go ahead, Devin. Try it now. All right, we'll wait till Devin gets his situation sorted. Is there anyone else that would like to weigh in here before we close the presentation? We have quite a bit of time. We have a good 15 minutes if we need it, but of course we don't need to fill it if we don't have anything more. So any further words? And it's a small group, so you don't need to raise your hand ahead of time.
I'm going to throw in there, Brent. I was an air cadet too. So even though I'm wearing the real uniform now, it's yeah, I started out the same spot. And I actually, I did electronics training when the cadet system used to take us onto the bases and everything. I got sent to Borden when I was 16, 17, and I did 6 weeks at the CIFSAT, School of Aerospace Training and Engineering. And we worked in the radar labs and taking apart the black boxes and such and putting them back in. And it was a fantastic experience. We had all regular force instructors. They were actually all poet instructors that had come out of Kingston to teach us. And I learned an awful lot at that point. And it really sealed the deal for me going forward there. And as I mentioned, my electronics teacher with, here's the radio out of a B-17, here, use this. Okay. Then we ended up with a high school station. We went and installed that. So we got some fantastic Heathkit gear in there. And we were operating as Victor Echo 3 Charlie India. So I was operating as that for several years and when I was in high school. But it's funny, I noticed that call sign's back out around again. It's I know that one well.
Right on. That's great. I think the earlier we can get people exposed, the better. In my case, I didn't get my ticket till I was 24, although I was exposed when I was in my early teens. But it took some life experience and a certain space shuttle mission to really click it for me and say, okay, that's it. I'm getting my license now. But yeah, the Air Cadets were awesome. And I went to Bagotville to summer camp in the early 70s, but I had to leave town. I didn't have to leave town. That sounds bad, but my family moved away to a community where we didn't have any Air Cadets. So I was out before I had a chance to advance in rank and maybe qualify for training, flight training. But I eventually got my pilot's license later. So I have a great affinity for aviation. Although most of my friends, I have to say, are Navy people, ex-Navy people, and a couple are still serving, including some family members. So yeah, I have a fond spot for the Navy.
Well, you have good taste.
All right, thanks very much. Well, this has been great. Thanks again, Matthew, not only for the presentation today, but for all you do. And thanks to you as well, Al, and everyone who's joined us today. Thank you. And We'll return the next 21 minutes back to you for a comfort break if you need that before the RAC annual general meeting gets underway at the top of the hour. So I'll stop the recording now and wish you all the best. Thank you. And 7-3.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.